Everyone's a marketing expert, and yet no one understands it.
Julia White, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Amazon Web Services, says she's addicted to working in tech. Before Amazon, she was Chief Marketing and Solutions Officer at SAP and earlier spent about 2 decades at Microsoft. Now approaching 1 year at AWS, Julia says she has spent her first months listening and learning the business before making changes. But in a company that can't move slowly, she's also pushed ahead, bringing leaders together to rethink demand generation, reassess brand strategy, and refine how AWS engages its many audiences, from developers to top decision makers. In short, she wants to strike a balance between careful understanding and fast action. Hi, I'm Ruth Umo, editor at Fortune, and this is Next to Lead, our weekly series about the new generation of C-suite talent. Each episode, we will speak with today's most prominent leaders who are shaping the future of business and who, quite frankly, have CEO bona fides. How did they get where they are? What drives their vision for the future? How do they turn setbacks into comebacks? We will dig into their career journeys, talk about their big wins, and explore the lessons they've learned along the way.
Are you ready to nurture what's next? Reimagine industries. To turn bold ambition into the beginning of everything. What's your next brilliant move? McKinsey & Company.
All right, Julia White, AWS CMO, thank you so much for joining Fortune Next to Lead.
So glad to be here. Great to meet you as well.
Likewise, albeit virtually. All right, let's jump right into the conversation at hand. You are approaching your 1-year mark as the CMO of AWS. How have you put your stamp on the marketing strategy thus far?
Well, everything, when you come in new, you have to ask a lot of questions and you have to learn. I'm a big believer that you need to really understand a system before you can adjust a system. So honestly, in the first, I guess it's almost 10 months now, I've been listening a lot and learning a lot. But, this business, you can't move slowly. So also been moving fast around how do we want to go to the next, kind of the next version of ourselves and what do we need to do for what's happening in the market right now. So definitely, pulled a lot of leaders together, rethinking almost end to end at some level how we do demand generation marketing, taking a step back and thinking about our brand strategy at a holistic level, and then even kind of diving into different audience engagement. We have such a wide variety of audiences we have to work with, developers, decision makers, and everything in between. So how are we making sure that we're being relevant to each of those specific audiences? So it's a moment to come in, learn a lot, but also, try and push us forward as fast as possible.
What have you heard over the last 11 months or so? What are the leaders around you telling you, your marketing team?
Mm. Gosh, a lot of passion. Like I have to say, I've been so delighted and impressed with the people at AWS and Amazon. It's been really fun to come in and just see all the things we know about the culture, right? In terms of really owner mindset, bias for action, everyone's accountable. So those really show up very, very quickly. And that allows you to move fast, right? I mean, ultimately, Amazon is an innovation culture, which is one of the things that really drew me here of what does it look like to be highly innovative at this scale. And so been learning a lot about what that looks like and how the team runs to be able to be this scale, but still moving so fast around innovation.
I mean, you mentioned Amazon scale, and what's interesting is you've held so many senior roles at massive companies, Microsoft, SAP, and now obviously AWS. They're 3 very different tech cultures, however. I'm curious, what are these standout skills or the learnings that you've kind of taken away from these respective companies and some of those experiences?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? I also do think that, you gotta vote as a human, you vote with your feet on where you take your job. And I'm like, I guess I really like big tech companies because I keep doing that again and again. But very different, like as you said. And I mean, my journey at Microsoft, if I start kind of from that perspective, was seeing a company through 2 very different chapters, right? And getting a very much a front row seat of what it looks like to transform just a massive organization from the culture all the way to how we deliver it to the external world, right? That was a fascinating business case, I know, kind of business school case study type of experience to see kind of the transformation around Microsoft, and had wonderful opportunities multiple times there to be on big change businesses. And that's where
And the transformations at Microsoft were what? You said there were 2 transformations.
well, a big one of moving from being an on-premises company to being a cloud company was one big one. And then culturally, there was I'll call it, when Steve Ballmer was running the company versus when Satya took over and fundamentally shifted the culture and the mindset and the investments that we made in those areas. So both the business and the company itself from a cultural perspective.
And as for SAP.
Yeah, I think that also interestingly joined at a time when it was very much about moving the business. What had been, 50 years old when I joined, celebrated their 50th anniversary from an on-premises primarily company to very much kind of a leader in cloud around the ERP segment and bringing new SaaS applications together. So it was a fun one that I'd kind of seen the movie before a little bit, and obviously it's different everywhere, but I was able to come in and help move faster because I'd seen it and I could believe and I could give people promise that on the other side it really works out. So that was a fun one to join and help them on that big shift.
I want to focus on your career ascension. You've always worked at large enterprise organizations where upward mobility can be slower than smaller, more nimble companies. How did you navigate this, and what advice would you give to ambitious professionals wanting to rise to the ranks of a sprawling organization?
You can't get lost at a big company, right? So, my approach is kind of simple, really. It was I tried to literally just add value on every room I was in, every project I was assigned to. And it turns out when you add value and you solve problems, particularly at big companies that have lots of problems and lots of opportunities, they'll give you more. And if you keep doing it in a way that people want to work with you again, you have followership, you demonstrate that you leave things better than when you got them, more opportunities come your way. And as long as you continue to raise your hand and be willing to step up and lean in and do more and kind of take on new challenges, it tends to work out. Again, the thing I love and why I think I keep coming back to big companies is there's so many opportunities, right? Like I love fast growth. I love learning new things. I like the minute my growth trajectory slows, I get bored fast. And so I like being at places where there's unlimited opportunities, unlimited problems, unlimited markets we can go after because then your growth never really slows. You get those opportunities. But you have to be willing to, step up and lean in and try a lot of new things. And I think sometimes I see people maybe not ascending as maybe they could or should because they're not willing to take that risk. They're like, well, I'm really good at this one thing. I don't want to give up being great at this one thing and jump in to do something else. And that's going to limit your growth, right? And that's going to limit your ability to continue to move up and have the skills to continue to move up.
You spent the bulk of your career at the intersection of where marketing meets technology. What's been your approach to developing not only deep expertise, but still gaining the breadth of experience needed to lead at a global level?
It really is the balance of staying somewhere long enough to become great at it, but then pushing yourself to move to the next thing, right? And you see the different extremes. You see someone stay and do something for 20 years and not change, and they're not getting that breadth of experience. They're staying real comfortable in that domain expertise. And then you also see people moving every year or two, bouncing around. And I'm like, well, if you don't stay long enough, you don't learn. You don't get the wisdom that you can actually use and take to the next role you take. And so I tried to be very balanced through my career of, for smaller career moves, 2 to 3 years, you needed to stay and really get the insight and the learning and the wisdom to make sure that you know that when you made a decision it was actually right because you stayed around long enough to see the results of it versus make a decision and leave and you just thought you were right. And then on big moves, it's more, 5 or 6 years to become great at it. So tried to pace myself while continuing to have a lot of growth in the role.
Did you ever consider leaving the tech sector?
I did. When I went to business school and before my very first job, which was at Intuit, so always in tech. And as I was business school, I was like, maybe I'll try something else. And I remember I did exactly one consulting interview, and I was like, nah, that's not what I want to do. But I like the pace of tech. I just haven't found any other industry that has this kind of pace to it. And the fact that tech touches every part of society, right? I just feel what a privilege to work in an industry that has that kind of global and social impact. So I'm kind of addicted, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, look, nearly 30 years in this industry. And so that's quite telling in and of itself. Well, let me ask you this. The CMO role has really evolved from pure brand stewardship to really being a core driver of business growth, of strategic growth. And so I am wondering, in your view, what are the skills, what are the leadership qualities that today's CMOs must demonstrate to be true strategic partners, certainly across the C-suite, but more importantly to the CEO?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that CMOs need to be business leaders, right? And I think, in past times and places, it was okay to either just be a brand marketer, right? Or just be a demand gen marketer or just be an event marketer, and have the more discipline areas. But fundamentally, you need to be a business leader. You need to understand the business that you are part of and how the marketing discipline is in service to that. And I think if you don't have that mindset and that you're not holding yourself to that accountability, you're not holding your team to that kind of accountability, you're not going to have the impact on the company. You're not going to be delivering what the company needs you to have. And so I think it's essential that I spend as much time with my own team, driving marketing execution as I do with my finance team, making sure I'm deep on the business, as with the product team to make sure I understand the technology and the services that we're offering the world. Because if I don't, then I'm not being a business leader. And that's how you're going to stay relevant. And also, I mean, gosh, and we could talk about it more. The marketing itself is changing so much. And as that evolution is going, as a steward of how that's changing and how you're going to use marketing, if you're not plugged in deep on the core business aspects, then you're going to be leading it in the wrong direction and maybe not realize.
What do you think outsiders most underestimate about the complexity of the CMO role, about the impact of the CMO role today?
Yeah. I know. I think I have many conversations with my CMO peers about how everyone's a marketing expert and yet no one understands it. So both are true. I would say one of the most complex parts of the CMO role in marketing in general is that at some level, there's things that are very measurable, right? And you can show absolute direct correlation and ROI to, but there's also things that are less measurable. And you have to marry that high judgment decision and that wisdom and instincts with the measurable parts of it. And I have to say, I've been incredibly impressed with the measurement capabilities that Amazon has. Probably not surprising. So we're taking some of that mystery out here, and I'm hope to share it with the industry so we can all get better. But that's one of the harder parts. There's always like, what's the value of this, and what's one more brand level investment look like, and how can I demonstrate that? So that's I always value being very close partners and tight with the CFO because that's fundamentally the person who has to believe and understand and get what we're doing on that piece of it. And then I'd say there isn't a part of the customer journey that marketing doesn't touch, which also makes it really complicated, right? Everything from getting people to wear to making the buying decision to actually using the products to becoming fans. It's not like there's any one part of that customer journey marketing can stand down from. So that also you have to think about that in a very holistic way, which also makes marketing pretty complicated.
When you took over AWS's marketing organization roughly 11 months ago, what was the first major change or guiding principle that you put in place to really set the direction for your team, for the broader organization?
Mm. I mean, it's something that I believe in as a leader anywhere, but the first thing was I talked to the team about, I call it fierce prioritization. And in a business like AWS, and a marketing team like this, we have some level unlimited opportunities, right? There's in tons of growth. There's tons of customers to serve. There's always going to be more opportunity than we can fulfill. And so it has to come down to we got to pick our spots. And I'm a huge believer that I can only be great at a couple things at any one time. And so it goes for my team. And so we have to pick our places, right? And prioritization is about what you're not going to do, really. And so clarifying that and saying, you know what, we got to be great at this because we're not great at this. The other thing doesn't matter. And in the fullness of time, we'll be great at everything, but not right now. So a lot around prioritization, focus, and being great at what we pick we want to do.
What are you prioritizing these days? What do you want to be great at in the immediate short term?
I mean, if for a business like AWS today, it's around AI, right? That is the technology revolution of our time. And so making sure that AWS is seen and given all the credit we deserve around what we're doing around AI, the innovation we're enabling for our customers, for our partners, for ourselves, that's what we talk about all the time.
AWS operates on a massive and global scale, as you and I both know. How do you keep all of these marketers just aligned on the same goals and doing so without stifling creativity?
Yeah, it is that balance of, right, how much do you standardize versus how much do you, kind of create local capabilities. I'm a believer it's like a 70-30 mix, right? There's if because you think about great marketing at some level is just about consistency, right? If you say your message consistently and compelling again and again and again, people finally really hear it and listen and believe it. So you have to have high consistency. You can't give that up or you're just doing bad marketing. It's not gonna have the impact. But one of the benefits of a company like AWS is we have people all over the world sitting in region that can take that capability, that message, that idea, and create that little bit of local experience around it that makes it just that much more interesting and memorable and compelling to our customers and gives us differentiation, frankly, than other companies can do. And so finding that balance, you want to basically empower. What resonates with customers in Japan is different than in France. It's different than in North America. And so we want to have that local tailoring. But if you're fundamentally not consistent, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, you alluded to the fact that you want more data around metrics of success, to put it in kind of more facile terms. I'm curious how you structure your team so that marketing, or how you develop your team so that marketing isn't just a support function in the organization, but a true revenue driver. How do you get them to think in that way, in a way that's really material?
Well, it starts with we actually look at revenue as one of our outcomes. And, in our weekly business reviews, we sit with our sales partners and we have our metrics about how we are directly contributing to revenue. So, I mean, very factually on that part. And in a business like AWS, we do, sell direct. So that's a marketing led end to end experience. And so you can see hard revenue numbers, but then also influencing a lot of the pipeline that ultimately gets to revenue. So, we literally look at that so that people know and believe that that is how we're working and taking accountability and putting a seat at the table with our sales partners to show that and have that mindset is certainly a key piece of that. But that's the last part of the customer journey is the revenue part of it. So we also have metrics starting all the way from brand awareness, brand perception, engagement metrics, all the way down to ultimately the revenue piece. But I do think there's marketing folks who push against, taking revenue and holding themselves to account on that, and I get that, but I think at the end of the day, that's what we're driving, and if we don't do that, you don't have credibility with your sales partners, and so you need to be able to step up and have that accountability as well.
Well, look, you've been at the epicenter of enterprise tech for years. How has the way marketing teams worked with engineering teams evolved? And I'm curious what you think that means for the next generation of tech CMOs.
Yeah, I mean, if I go way back to when the world was on premises and technology, and we were shipping boxes of servers and software, it was back then. It was engineering teams would build something, and they would kind of like throw it over the fence, and marketing and be like, "Okay, figure it out." And so it was like kind of a cold handoff, as it used to be early in my career. And then I think, particularly as you evolve into cloud and more cloud services, it really gets more integrated, right? The product itself becomes one of the marketing vehicles, and the product and the channel start to converge too. And so that certainly changed. And the closeness between the product side and the marketing side came a lot tighter. And I remember even early in, as the world was moving to cloud, that AWS birthed, frankly, there was conversations like, oh, what's the marketing role? What's the product role? And having to redefine that and like product led growth and those kind of initiatives and those possibilities became present. So it's definitely been an evolution. I would say since then it's reasonably consistent, which is marketing's job fundamentally is to make sure that as we're investing and creating new innovations and developing new products that it's fitting with the customer's needs and that there's the market, there's customer pain that we're bringing the aspirin for their headache kind of approach, but also that we're translating amazing innovation that's happening into ways that customers can really see the value to them. And that's hard work sometimes, right? Sometimes the customers aren't saying like, I need this thing. They just have a problem, and you have to translate this innovation to demonstrate how it solves their problem.
I mean, as you know better than anyone, really, marketing a B2B cloud platform is worlds apart from selling a consumer product, for instance. What strategies work best for reaching enterprise customers and making, an abstract product feel more tangible?
Yeah. I know. I'm always like, it's hard to touch the cloud, right? And humans
Yes.
like
We
physical
can reach
things,
for the
right?
clouds, but we can't always touch them.
I know. I know. It's funny. I always feel like, why did I pick B2B tech? It's so much more complicated than B2C. I think I'm a glutton for punishment on that one.
Yes.
But I like it because it is complex and making something that is intangible, tangible, right? But at the end of the day, the people that you're engaging with in marketing, whether it's to consumers or to businesses, they're just people. And I do think sometimes in the B2B world, we can forget that and we think, oh, it's a business. And I'm like, well, businesses are made up of humans. And at the end of the day, these humans have dreams and career ambitions and life ambitions. And we need to make sure that we're taking all this wonderful stuff we're doing and explaining how it helps them as a human, not just as a business, and gets to their heart and their head and says, "Hey, you want to achieve this in your life and this in your career, and here's how we're going to help you do that." I think we talk about breaking out of the sea of sameness of like performance and speed and price, and you got to, sure, those are all requirements, but ultimately, it's like, are we speaking to that human and helping their life get better? And if we're doing that, then we're going to make a difference, and they're going to want to work with us and have that trust over time.
Can you share, for instance, of when you think AWS has done that well?
Mm. Yeah, we do these really cool, they're called envisioning sessions. And, as a CIO or a technology leader or a product line leader, you have these problems, but you don't know, you're not the technologist, you don't sit at Amazon or others, we can do this. So we literally bring them in and we bring in experts from around the company and former CIOs and CTOs as well to sit with them. And we literally just spend the day talking through what are their challenges, what are their opportunities, what are their dreams, what are their aspirations, and how can we, the collective, think about how we could unlock that for them. And it's a really creative process. There's literally like someone drawing the ideas and creating these beautiful visuals of the conversation, and it's this really wonderful like trust building but also high value way to engage with the people and understand what they want, what their business needs, and how we can kind of co-develop and co-create together. So to me, that's one of those most fun days to join in, where you just see these ideas unlock, and you walk out as a customer, invigorated and with real solutions that there's a great company here to help you with and deliver. And think about like right now, everybody's trying to figure out how to use AI to transform their business, right? Like
Absolutely.
that is the topic. And so sitting with us and having that expertise can be hugely transformative for them and unlocking the capabilities.
Well, one more recent development I've noticed is that many customers now want cloud offerings that are tailored to their industry or that guarantee that data stays in their country or in their region. I'm curious how you're adapting AWS's marketing strategy to kind of meet those expectations.
Yeah, I think, picking up on the latter, regulated industries, they certainly need that and have wanted that. The reality is, while it's kind of a hot topic today, it's always been true. And so, from the very beginning, how AWS architected its data centers and its regions is kind of called sovereign by design, so that customers have that control and they can decide how and where their data sits, where it resides. So that's been fundamental from the very beginning. So kind of I think we knew that would be important, and it's become more important. And then on top of that, one of the things we're launching actually later this year is our European sovereign cloud, which is even taking it like a step farther. Which not only is it run all out of Europe by Europeans, all of its kind of the data all remains there. It has additional capabilities and guardrails around that. So, as our customers need further and further controls and isolation, we're offering that as well. And think about the cloud's been around, coming up on 20 years. We'll have our 20-year anniversary next year. And so a lot of us moved to the cloud, but there's a lot that hasn't. And so as we work with our customers about like, okay, what would it take? What does it need? What do you need? It's these kind of things. So that's one of the big investments we made in like our European sovereign cloud as an example to address that specific need.
When you talk to these customers about their needs, are there any trends you can highlight? I mean, what are their pain points? What are their challenges?
At the highest level, it's always the same, right? Growing revenue, controlling cost, being more productive on those fronts. But I mean, less meta than that. Right now, there is how do I use AI? Like that's probably the very top conversation I'm having with every single customer. I was just in Germany last week at the automotive event, the largest automotive event in the world, and every automotive manufacturer and supplier I met with, that was the topic. As how do I use it? How do I create new products faster? How do I drive more efficiencies in my production line? How do I use AI to create simulations of my car? So a huge range of things. I mean, that is the conversation.
That's absolutely the conversation. I was in Davos earlier this year, and it was a topic du jour this year. It was certainly a topic du jour last year. Staying on this conversation of AI, at AWS is a foundational player in generative AI. How is it reshaping your marketing strategy? And bifurcating that question, how do you draw the line between automation and the human touch?
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing about AWS is we're part of Amazon, so we get to see what's happening across, and I get to learn from what my colleagues are doing in the store and in music and other parts of it as well. So, trying to, and we're such an experimental culture. We try and try all the things ourselves. So within AWS marketing, is using AI around content development, right? Like I remember when I started my journey way back long ago in marketing, and I thought about, gosh, wouldn't it be amazing if we could give customers exactly the message, exactly the content, that exactly the information they needed in that moment. But of course, you can't do that, right? You had segmentation and you had content for certain segments. And now you literally can say, gosh, Ruth is interested in these things and is doing those things. And here's something that's incredibly relevant. And I can create that content right there, real time, and deliver it to her. To me, that's like the dream's finally here. We have the tools to unlock the dream. So using it around content development, content creation, that kind of segment of one type of marketing, very exciting. And then it's also, every customer has different channels, different ways they want to engage. And so how do we really optimize that, those customer touches through the different channels, a different time on their journey that matches exactly what they're looking for? AI is really powerful in that part of it. We've seen huge growth and acceleration in pipeline through that aspect of it. And then even things like more upstream of using AI to simulate customer research, right? And we talk about like the synthetic customer. We have so much market research, we have so much input from our customers, and we can actually use that to train a model that can represent a customer. And then we can literally test ideas on it as a kind of a synthetic customer example. So, kind of from the beginning of the concepting all the way to last mile execution, we're trying different things. And then just like in my CMO role, I use a lot of AI just to synthesize. People love to send me really long emails, Ruth, and I'm like, what's the point? What are we talking about?" Right? So we use email to get to the TLDRs and kind of even come up with something, so quick ideas on things. So it's a good kind of a thought partner sometimes too.
Yeah, we touched a bit on this at the top of the conversation, but I do want to delve in just a little bit more now that we are at the AI segment because AI can speed execution. I do still think that successful marketing still hinges on human creativity, and I'd assume you agree. How are you using AI to enhance your team's creative process without diluting or compromising the originality or the talent of your marketers?
Yeah. I actually think that creativity is going to be more valuable than ever. In a world of AI that can just propagate massive amounts of undifferentiated content, right? The creativity is going to be even more important. So, and those beautiful ideas and those things that capture capture the human imagination, the human heart, are fundamentally from humans, right? And I think that will always be true, and maybe in the future even more a differentiator. So that fundamentally believe in that. Now, in the actual use of AI in that creative process, I love that we're using it to do some early ad concepting, right? Because oftentimes that can be a slow and back and forth process and take lots of time. And now we can just spitball some different ideas and actually use AI to concept it up for us and be like, "Ooh, that's it. No, that's not it." And again, we just never had that ability to do more of that iteration, real time, quickly, and to test out different ideas and get some concepts going. You usually had to pick your bets early and invest to do that before. So I love that freedom that it gives you to just kind of get some early ideas and say, yeah, that one's working, that one's not. So I think, but ultimately, the creativity and the storytelling, right? Marketing is the art of storytelling at some level. That is a human art form, and I don't see AI taking that place anytime soon.
I don't either. Well, as you look to the future, how do you see Gen AI transforming the very skills that marketers will need, let's say in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, whether they be hard skills or soft skills?
Yeah, I think, becoming fluent with using AI through the different marketing jobs certainly going to be important. And we have training and available widely around try this tool and here's how to think about using AI in this marketing process. But I think too is as you look forward, there's more and more agentic AI, like agents and these really capable agents that can work alongside you and really with you. And I think as I think about marketing the future of how do my marketing leaders and marketing teams work with these agents that are helping them accomplish tasks or measure impact on some of the campaigns they're running or be able to automatically say, hey, this messaging is working better than that one. Go there, not there, and adjust paid media as an example. So I think there's almost thinking about your agentic workforce alongside your human workforce and everyone becoming a manager in that type of a world. So I think we'll see where it goes in the future, but thinking about how do we get our employees ready for that and skilled and comfortable in that area.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about your first year or your first roughly 1 year. You're almost at the 1 year mark, and what's kind of in priority in that regard. As you look to the next year, what's front of mind?
I think that continuing to deliver at pace, right? I think I've been obviously in tech a long time, but the pace is continuing to accelerate and change. And so I look at it as our customers' needs are evolving quickly, and we need to keep up with that, right? And I love to quote the old Jack Welch quote of when the pace of change on the outside exceeds the pace of change on the inside, the end is near. And so I'm like, we got to move at pace because the outside world is moving at pace. So that's certainly a top priority. And, obviously with that is how we're using AI to help move us faster and keep iterating and keep meeting those external needs. So that's certainly important. But the other big one is that creativity and storytelling, right? That's what's going to differentiate us. And if we're not connecting with people's hearts and connecting with them as humans and telling them something different than they're hearing everywhere else in the world, then why does it matter? And so, one part is about the pace and the energy and using the technology we can. And the other one's very much the humanity and the creativity and that breakthrough storytelling that is ultimately differentiating.
All right, Julia, let's jump into a speed round of questions on how you think about leadership. What's the leadership trait you value most and the one you've worked hardest to strengthen in yourself?
The one leadership value I have most is around authenticity. I think, that earns trust, it creates followership, and it differentiates you. So I think authenticity is certainly key. And then strengthening, I think prioritization, right? Great leadership has to pick what you do and don't do, and that you just have to always be training up on that one.
What's one habit that keeps you grounded under pressure?
I think asking questions and listening. Right? When the heat's on, sometimes you can stop listening and switch to action, but I try and do the reverse and just keep asking questions to get the insights you really need.
When stakes are high and you have incomplete information, what is your decision making playbook?
I like to bring in diverse voices because when you have to move fast, you're going to have blind spots. And as fast as I can get diverse voices around me, I'm going to avoid that in my decisions.
Who is someone you turn to regularly for professional advice or mentorship?
Well, I think I've had a semi father figure in my life for years and years and years, and I think there's one person I've turned to throughout my life. It's been him, but in general, I try and keep a council of folks around me that I can pull forward as I need based on the circumstance.
We'll wrap with this final question. If you could give your 30-year-old self one career tip, what would it be?
I would tell her to say her inside voice out loud and to have the confidence to do that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think earlier in my career, I would observe things and I'd have ideas and I'd be like, I think this is right or I think this is wrong, but I might not give myself permission to say it out loud. And I look back, I'm like, well, I should have. I knew the answer. I had that insight. I had that perspective, and they didn't get the benefit of my voice because I edited myself.
Julia White, thank you so much for joining us on the Fortune Next Lead podcast.
Great to be here.